Hey everyone, welcome to the
Hi.
Clydesdale CrossFitter and Friends. My name is Scott
Hey.
Schweitzer. I am your host, and as you can see, we are now in live and living color, and we're going to go to YouTube. I have
Right.
with me the full cast of characters. Amy, how's it going?
Hey.
Charlie, what's up, man?
Yo.
And a new but familiar face, well, at least voice,
Yes.
Kat Shear.
Hello.
So Kat is joining the crew as one of the friends, and we're excited to have her on. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. You guys are awesome. It's gonna be fun.
So now that we're on YouTube, we have to do that obligatory, hey, if you like the content you're seeing here, hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, come on, and share with your friends, because we're new to YouTube. We need all your help and support. So share with everybody you know so that we can get the word out there if you like the content you see here.
Yes, and most importantly, because we want to become more YouTube famous than our children could ever be on.
Yes, please.
Yeah, the masters athletes of internet famous.
This is a competition.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because my daughter actually checks my followers on Instagram to see if I'm ahead of her or behind her.
Yeah.
And truth be told, I'm ahead of her right now.
Yeah.
Game on. Let's go.
So with that, hey, you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at the Clydesdale CrossFitter as well. And our YouTube channel name is the Clydesdale CrossFitter and Friends Podcast. So check us out there. So training week, we do that every week. How's everybody's training week going?
Pretty solid. Pretty solid, I would say. I did a lot of legs this week. So my legs are feeling a little heavy, but did a lot of squats, legs, box jumps, but feeling pretty good. I mean, I think my training week was pretty solid overall.
And you're hanging with the normal programming, right? Because you have access to full equipment.
Yeah. I've been hanging with just following ComTrain, so mostly on there, and maybe doing some extra kind of accessory stuff at home and such. But also because I don't really have a job I have a job, but I'm not showing up to work right now, so I have a lot more time on my hands, and I'm able to do a lot of this extra accessory work.
Yeah, I have a lot of time on my hands. I'm normally coaching and not doing a whole lot of that right now. So I luckily have a full gym set up at home, and I've worked out 6 days this week.
Dang.
So I'm feeling pretty good. Yeah, it hasn't happened in a while, so let's keep it going.
And some of the workouts you've been posting are pretty aggressive.
Yeah, they're fun. I haven't tested all of them, and I find myself, I'll add little notes to the bottom of the programming, like I call it a captain's log, where I check in and see what I've done, and sometimes I change it.
How's the prison bod coming, Charlie?
This week was a little rough on the prison bod. We got 3 days in, but it's slowly coming along. We're still doing our Carrie Pierce abs though, so
Awesome.
shout out to Carrie's trying to destroy my core.
There you go.
How'd you make out this week, Scott?
So you guys know this, but for our listeners, I tweaked my back this week, and I don't know how. I think it's just because I'm 50. And I went to get out of my office chair, and all of a sudden it hurt really bad. And so I have been trying to figure that out this week. As I've told Amy and Kat and Charlie, it's in the same spot as the last injury. So I'm trying to keep a good head about it and not get stupid and nuts about it. So anyway, it's getting better each day, about 50% better each day since Tuesday. And so what I've been doing the last 2 days, which has been awesome, is I went to Christy Aramo, just down the street, was one of our first guests. And I've been doing bodybuilding band work that she adds as accessory work. So a lot of curls and presses with bands. And that's been really awesome, because I can keep my back really stable, yet it's crushing me. Who would have thought that a simple band at high repetitions and you're smoked? And then this morning I started Carrie Pierce's power abs, Charlie.
Yeah, buddy.
Ooh, jumping on the bandwagon. I love it.
So I'm hoping that like if I can get that core much stronger, that it'll hold the back more, I don't know, more secure. And I won't have these problems in the future.
Wait a minute. Like core strength would help support your back?
What a concept.
I don't
Yeah.
believe it.
And who knows, it may make me a better CrossFitter.
Mm.
So yeah, I started that this morning. That is a 10-minute workout. That is no joke.
Correct.
Yeah, you're not moving around a lot, but holy cow, dripping in sweat. So that's our training week. We are so privileged for our first ever live video interview on YouTube. We have a really special guest this week. We have the legend himself, Chris Spealler. So, guys, what any thoughts about this interview before we switch it over to that?
Well, I read his book. I started reading his book almost a year ago and finished his book a few days ago before we interviewed him. A real good read. Exactly what I expected from him. He's just such a cool guy, really laid back, super competitive, has got a great mindset. And I just loved, all the things he got to tell us that I think people are going to find interesting. It's not the run of the mill stuff that we usually talk about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I really liked it.
Yeah, and I think it's really important too that it's really timely that we got this interview, just because he is about 5 weeks out of recovering from COVID, and I think it was just so important that he spoke out about it, because we're hearing so much in the media about COVID, but that there's this misconception that it's only the elderly or high risk people, that it just was great to see somebody speak out who obviously is a super fit elite athlete, one of the OGs of CrossFit, and so it was just really a privilege to talk to him and get his story on that, among other things that he also opened up about.
Yeah, and he was so laid back and easygoing during the interview. It was just really fun, but open and honest about all the things he kind of experienced in his career. So with that, let's bring in Chris Spealler. We'll go do a wardrobe change because we're wearing different clothes for that interview, and then we'll be back with you after the interview. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
I'm well. How are you guys?
I'm doing great.
Good. Nice to see you.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you.
So we have 7 times games athlete Chris Spealler with us today. So excited about that. Let's start with the news of the day, the COVID-19.
Yeah.
And you announced last week that you actually contracted that disease. So tell us what that was like.
It was wild. I think mostly because of the family dynamic. So, and the uncertainty around it. It's in my really limited experience displayed itself in so many different ways. We have some people in town that we know, even from our gym community, that have been hospitalized from it. We have some people that have gotten just really sick. We have people that have had really mild symptoms. So there's a lot of uncertainty around it, which made it tricky. But I think more than anything, it was the family dynamic that made it tough, because once I found out I had it, we had already been trying to kind of have some distance with the kids and my wife. But I didn't have a fever. It wasn't the typical stuff. So as we were going through it, even from the healthcare providers or the health department, as helpful as they were still uncertain on a lot of things and how to handle it. So the quarantine was interesting and difficult. And then once I started feeling better, and then my wife had to go into it, and then I had to come upstairs with the kids, and kids started to show symptoms, but they had tested negative, and they said you should try to keep the kids separate. But how do you do that with a 10 and an 8-year-old? How do you, it was just a hard dynamic, it's really hard. And people ask me often, they're like, oh my gosh, is this the most sick you've ever been? No, I've been more sick for sure. But it's an odd one. It's quite a long recovery process. And even now I still have lingering stuff, and I'm 5.5 weeks in from having symptoms. So I still have these odd things kind of lingering, which is really annoying, but we're grateful that it wasn't worse.
So would you say that the quarantine was actually harder on you than the actual symptoms, or was it a little bit of both?
Probably the symptoms, probably the uncertainty. Because for me, I had the shortness of breath, and it wasn't anything where I obviously had to be hospitalized or get on in oxygen or anything like that. But that's unnerving, is the shortness of breath. And I kept telling my wife, Sarah, I was like, man, if this was just a fever, if it was just that, I wouldn't care. But the shortness of breath, when you can't control that, is quite nerve-wracking, I think. The quarantine, annoying, but doable, because we all know it's temporary.
And shortness of breath is probably something new for you. You're kind of known for your
Right.
endurance and stamina. So that had to be weird.
Yeah, and I told some other people too. I think the good thing and maybe the tricky thing is that when you're aware of how you feel, and when you're aware of your kind of body, I think we can sometimes be maybe not hypersensitive, but you're just more aware when things are a little off. So if things are a little off, it's like I notice it, but if things are quite a bit off, I'm like, whoa, this is not normal. So I think that's probably a lot of what was happening and makes it a little difficult.
Well, I watched your Instagram video that you posted about it, and about how you were waffling or wondering about if you should, come out and talk about it. And I'm really glad that you decided to, because I think it's really important for other people to hear that healthy people, fit people can also be affected by this. It's not just the sick or the elderly. And so I really appreciate that you did come out, because I think it was an important message for people to hear.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. It's I think we need to be smart, and there's a lot of things as things evolve and change. It's it's crazy, to think about what's happening to our social dynamics and our economy and all these things. And I think there has to be conversation where we can figure out how to move forward and get things open again, and do that in a smart way, and have compassion for people and be smart, not be naive. You got to find this middle ground, right? Because not everywhere is the same. In New York, the experience is going to be way different than Park City versus middle of nowhere, Wyoming versus Florida. So it's different for all of us, but we all have to respect it.
But your family's all doing well now, and everybody's getting on the mend and doing much better.
Yeah, for sure. And thankfully, kids are running around like crazy. They're good. My wife, she's doing great. A little bit of fatigue and some weird, like we both have experienced kind of this weird nervy type stuff in our muscles. If we do nothing crazy workout wise, but like some sore muscle, like nerve stuff still lingering. So yeah, we're definitely all on the mend, doing much, much better than 2 weeks ago.
It's funny you say the nerve thing. It came out today that the Los Angeles Rams center contracted the disease, and he lost his sense of smell and taste during the disease. So yeah, it must be hitting the neurological system at times as well.
For sure. And that happened to my wife. She lost that. I didn't, but definitely something's tweaked with the central nervous system, because some stuff with like muscle and nerve issues, like pain and things like that, but nothing that we can't work through and we don't see subsiding.
So let's move on to something a little more happy. Your family, you're married to Sarah.
Yep.
And you have 2 kids, 10 and 8. You said that when talking about the COVID. So how did you meet your wife?
Oh man. Yeah. So it's funny. We just did a podcast the other day. It was the first time I kind of interviewed her on our podcast, and I met Sarah at a Young Life camp in upstate New York called Saranac in 1999. So we met there working as basically camp counselors. And I was on the ropes course. She was at the craft shack, and met there working, and then kind of went back to school and did our own thing. And about 5 years later, I got an email from her sending out to like the group that we all worked with at Saranac. And we reconnected, and she came out for a visit during her spring break. And then that turned into her coming out for the summer to hang out and live. And then she never went home, and suckered her into marrying me. So, yeah.
And you guys dated for a while before you got married?
Not a ton. It was 2 years that we dated. So we had met at Saranac, and then through that 5 years, I went back to college. She was at another college. I had moved out to Utah in that time. And then when she moved out, we dated for a little over 2 years before we got married.
Oh, nice. And then you have, is it 2 boys?
A boy and a girl.
A
So
boy and
our
a girl.
boy's 10, yep, and our girl's 8. So we're one of each and good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Done with that. Check that off the list.
So far.
Yeah, Kat and I are both in that same boat. We both have our kids are 2 years apart, a boy and a girl, but now they're 17 and 14. So we've got woo.
Yeah, right. It's
Yeah.
funny. I talk to people. I'm like, man, it's not so much the 0 to 13. It's the 13 to 18 that makes me more nervous. My
For
daughter,
sure.
she's a firecracker though. And it's a lot of work for us, but I was like, she gave me a stink eye the other night at the dinner table. Because I was talking to her, giving her a hard time about how she's like that. And I said, honey, I was like, it's going to serve you well. It might be tough for mom and dad, but it's going to serve you well when you get older. We just got to channel it. Those boys won't mess with her. That's for sure.
That's right.
Yeah, my daughter's 18, just finishing up her freshman year in college.
Wow.
Crazy times.
Yeah, especially oh my gosh, I was talking to some of our gym members, and you've got this broad scope. We have kids that are 8, 10. We have people in the gym that literally just had a baby during the pandemic. We have people that have kids that are going to miss their high school graduation. And it's just so crazy to think that our generation, these generations, our generation especially, and even our kids, right? We're going to be the generation that in 50 years, 30 years is talking to our grandkids or their grandkids about, hey, I went through this pandemic, or I went through this. And it's not the first time this has happened. I think people are like, this has happened before, but not in a long time. So it's interesting that we're going to be able to look back and share this with other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been telling my son, he's getting ready to apply to colleges, and I told him, the college essay that everyone's going to be writing now is, what did I do during my quarantine? So have something good to write about.
Other than Xbox and sleeping. That's
right.
cool.
Right.
That's great.
Right. That may be a little too accurate there. So I want to talk about your athletic career before CrossFit. And so you were a wrestler at Lock Haven University? I
was, yeah. Yeah, so I wrestled.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Yeah, I don't want to jibber jabber too much. Go ahead.
So what's crazy about that for me is I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, and I actually went to Clarion University, who were in the same division as Lock Haven. Yeah. And I was actually friends with Kurt Angle.
No way. Yeah.
College.
I wrestled his younger, or his cousin? Or his brother, his younger brother, his cousin? Mark. No. Yeah, I wrestled Mark. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hung out with the wrestlers at Clarion back in their heyday. But yeah, we would wrestle Lock Haven. So yeah. So what was that like?
That's crazy. Wow, small world. So I grew up playing all sorts of different sports. I really found myself attracted to wrestling because, shocker, I was small. When I was really small as a kid, and I kind of got tired of not being able to keep up with the kids on the soccer field, or being too small for this or feeling too small for that. And wrestling suddenly had this even playing field. I remember thinking, wait a second, I get to compete against guys my size? That sounds really fair. So growing up, I played all sorts of different sports, but wrestling, I really clung to it. And when it came time to decide to go to college, it's funny, I started looking around at different schools that I wanted to go to, and I thought about places that had Young Life because I was really interested in being like a volunteer leader there. But I also really wanted to wrestle Division I. But I wasn't one of those kids that was going to do well at a big school. So like a 40,000, 25,000 student body where you have classes of hundreds of kids. That just wasn't me. And I looked around at some schools. I looked out west at first because I really wanted to live in the mountains. And I didn't find any programs that I really was excited to go to, nor were ones really looking at me. I had an opportunity to go to Iowa State and kind of walk on the team there. I looked at places like JMU and all sorts of places, but lower school, like Division II and Division III schools were asking a lot. They were super interested, and I had gotten offered some substantial scholarships from those divisions. But there was this piece of me that I thought, man, like I never want to look back and think, what if I would have gone D1? What could I have done? And I visited Lock Haven. They had recruited me, and I met one of my wrestling coaches there. His name's Rocky Bonomo, and he is just one of the most awesome humans on the planet. And he was just a huge part of that. Kerry Colott was there at the time. And to be able to be coached by him, he's got third in the world. He's in the Wrestling Hall of Fame. Like, guy's a freak show. And that really drew me in. So to go to a school that was small, kind of like Clarion, is the same vibe, you know? Yeah. We have this 6,000 student body, but wrestling was D1. It was the perfect blend. And it was a tough 5 years, but I learned a lot. Yeah, and I wouldn't trade it.
And you got to experience the baby mountains as opposed to the big rocky mountains.
Exactly. Very rainy though.
But you said you loved wrestling because you could compete against people the same size. But I think I read somewhere that you actually wrestled up at the beginning of your college career, correct?
I kind of bounced around. So I had a really interesting career in college. I went into our recruiting class my freshman year. The recruiting class that came in was ranked 5th in the nation. And they had kids that were, 2, 3, 4-time state champs that were just like laced throughout the lineup. And I was just a kid that was a 2-time state qualifier. And I really hadn't done anything profound in high school. And once I got to college is when I really experienced coaching that I really thrived in. And I learned a lot. So my freshman year, I redshirted automatically. Most every kid did that, gave them a chance to grow. My redshirt freshman year, second year, I wrestled against a kid, Trap, and he was a 4-time state champion. He was a great guy, super nice guy. And what I found is I ended up beating him in the wrestle-off, but then I didn't perform well on the mat. And that was tough because I beat him in the wrestle-off, which was not expected. My first match was against a kid that was an All-American in the Hershey Arena, and I'm just like some young, just breaking in the lineup. And I lost to him. And then the next one was against another nationally ranked guy, and he kind of smeared me across the mat. And they pulled me out of the lineup and put Trap in, and Trap performed well. And it's not his fault. He did great. And I had this really difficult year where I had to make weight every meet, and they would have me go with the team, and I'd travel every time. And they wouldn't tell myself or Trap who was going to wrestle. They'd make us warm up, and then the coach would decide right before the match who was going to go out. And the entire year, they chose Trap. And I wrestled off with him 2 more times, and I beat him 2 more times that year. They never put me back out on the mat. And that was like a really defining year. So the next year, I bumped up to 133 because I didn't want to have to deal with that. And also I had grown a bit. And that year, I actually bumped up to 33. And then our 141 pounder, he started not be able to make weight. So I bumped up to 141 and wrestled there. So I floated around a lot, but 133 was really where I belonged.
And then eventually in your senior year, you were top 20 in the country, right?
Yeah, it took a while to get there, but I had been ranked in the top 20 in the nation. I got to compete at, you remember EWL's Eastern Wrestling League, and that's the qualifier for us, kind of like the equivalent of the Big Tens, but in our conference. So I wrestled there, and I actually got 4th place. So I didn't qualify with a spot, but they had wild cards, and I got a wild card, went, and my first round I beat a kid from Oregon, and then the second round I had to wrestle the guy ranked 1st in the nation, Johnny Thompson from Oklahoma State, and I lost to him by 4 points, which was really, although a bummer to lose. I was like, okay, I belong here. And then the goal was to be an All-American. I think I had to win 2 more matches. And then I went into the wrestlebacks and lost in overtime to a guy that I had beat him once in the year and he beat me once in the year. And then that was the end of that, about 2 matches away from All-American. But it was really, a really, really cool experience. One of the better ones in my athletic career.
Do you think wrestling up in those early years helped you later as you got into your junior and senior year?
I think breaking into the lineup and being able to get experience on the mat is the most helpful. Wrestling up was not easy because I was still weighing, even when I wrestled 141, I was weighing, 140 tops. And then you have guys coming down from 160. So there's quite a big jump there.
Yeah, there's a big discrepancy there.
Yeah, but it was a really excellent experience to build confidence and just continue to get experience that I needed.
So what do you like to do in your off time? I know you're working hard, owning an affiliate and some different things, but what do you like to do for fun, just to decompress?
Oh man, anything on two wheels, and preferably downhill or quickly. So I really love downhill mountain biking. I really love riding my dirt bike. I started mountain biking when I was in high school, when it wasn't even like a cool thing to do, when it didn't even exist. We didn't really even have trails. And that, as I moved out west, just grew, and the trail system here is crazy. So that in the summer, and then skiing in the winter. I love to ski. I do some work for Ski Utah. I do some writing for them and get a chance to kind of cruise around and check out the different mountains in the area. We live in a really, really cool spot where we have, basically in our town, there's 2 different resorts within about 7 miles. And as the crow flies, there's probably 6 different resorts within about 8 miles. So a lot of play when it's open.
And so did you bring your kids on into learning how to ski and doing those activities with you guys from a pretty early age?
Yeah, for sure. It was always the skiing thing. It's such a great family sport, because you can really get outside, enjoy the mountains, and it doesn't have to be anything competitive. It can just be a way to really enjoy one another. So both of the kids started when they were probably 3, and we put them in this really cool ski school every year. It's just at the resort, and every Saturday they go up, and it's called Mountain Team, but it's nothing serious. Basically, they just get to ski with 6 or 8 of their buddies and a coach, and they just cruise around the mountain. It's so neat because now, even at 10 and 8, they know their way around the whole resort. We could, if we wanted to, drop them off and let them just go. And it's really neat that they have that exposure and that comfort in the mountains.
Absolutely.
So let's move a little bit more into your work life today. And you have a programming package out there, Spiel programming?
Yeah. Yep. So we offer that. We just look at that as an online extension of our family at CrossFit Park City. So CrossFit Park City is the brick and mortar, and then Spiel Programming is just our online family with that. And it's been interesting in this past month. It's really forced me and Chelsea and Kaylee, they work with me on it, to really reflect and think, hey, like what do we do? What do we want to do with this? And who do we serve? Because just like in CrossFit or sport or life in general, I think we all go through this process, and we can kind of evolve over time. And when we started Spiel Programming, it started off as Icon, and most people probably know it as that. But we had to do a brand change because I had no idea that there was a trademark infringement. It took 5 years for the company to let us know. But we ended up rebranding to Spiel. But we started as a competitive program, and this is in 2015. And that was something for us that we did just because it was where I was. And then it slowly started to change, and we offered more where it was less competitive and more lifestyle oriented. And as things have kind of evolved in this, we've really taken a hard look, like, hey, how do we want to serve? Like, who are we? What do we do? And we're in the process of really kind of stripping things down, simplifying things. We're not a competitive program. We offer programming that's largely based for the general population. We have a number of affiliates that follow it, where they've got these comprehensive lesson plans and videos. And I think due to my fault in like just figuring out like who are we in this time, there's been like a miscommunication. I think a lot of people assume we're a competitive program, where we're just not. We have some higher volume training there, but it's still not like a games competitive program. So yeah, we're in the process of really trying to help strip that down, simplify, and just really serve the community in a way that we think is what we're passionate about and what we think is really lasting for health and longevity, and provide coaching, not just programming, but coaching through an online platform.
So I know you have shown up at the games to assist with some of the athletes, but it's not from a programming standpoint. It's more from just a mindset coaching kind of a thing.
So that's what's interesting is at that time, yeah, we offered that programming. I helped Garrett Fisher, and he got back to the games and I was there for him. And then the following year I coached NorCal and I did programming for them. That was Team NorCal. So, and I had kind of like sprinkled in a couple other people had reached out to me during those times. I helped out Nathan Bramlett for a year, but I mean, this is back in like 2015, 2016 when things were still kind of geared toward that for us. And in that time period, we've just really shifted. And we have a couple people that really love to compete and they do some of the sanctional events and things like that. But, the truth is when I look at our community, when I look at the broad scope of it, there are people like us that they've got families and they have kids, or they have a busy work life, or they have, fill in the blank, and for them, they're using fitness as a way to be able to have health and longevity and do the things they want to do outside the gym. So as I look at that, we've just shifted toward that, which is honestly what I'm more passionate about. I don't want to do things that I'm not passionate about because I know I'm not going to put my best effort into it. And even me, the programming that I do, I do our own programming and I'm in and out of the gym in 45 minutes, no more than an hour. And I can ride my dirt bike and go on my mountain bike and do everything I could ever need to. I have plenty of capacity to do all the things I could ever want outside the gym. And that's what I want. I want to use my fitness. I don't want to just use it in another workout the next day. Like, what are we doing? We got to get out and use it and enjoy it and put it to use outside of CrossFit, because it's a privilege, right? People work hard to get it, and they work hard to have the ability to go do whatever they want. And I think they forget that if you do CrossFit and you do it well, and you're smart about how you program it and you have good variety in it, you can go run a half marathon tomorrow. You could go in an Olympic lifting meet tomorrow. You're not going to win, but who cares? If you're not training for that, why do you care? So let's get back to that. I think that's something that I'm really passionate about now.
I totally agree. And I think, when we look back at the pyramid, of what CrossFit is, that's what it's intended for. The games athletes are the very small percentage of us in this, sport. And so I couldn't agree with you more that I want to train and do CrossFit so that I can continue to take my fitness outside, run around, play with my kids, my grandkids, and have an active lifestyle. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. When you go back to the pyramid, you learn at the level 1, when Greg Glassman wrote that, and at the tip of that is sport, he didn't mean CrossFit as a sport.
Right.
He meant sport, right? Because CrossFit as a sport didn't exist then. So
yeah.
It's no, apply it to sport. And that means go play pickleball with your friends, go mountain bike, fill in the blank, go apply it. And now you have this base. And I think people have forgotten that. And I think that's what I'm passionate about, is helping people realize hey, I hesitate to call it a gift because they earned it, right? They worked for it, but you have a gift, because some people can't do this stuff, right? For whatever reason. And you have the ability to do it. Your ability to work hard is a privilege, and your fitness is a privilege and a gift, although you've worked hard for it. Now go use it, unwrap it, put it to use out there.
Yeah. Chris, you also have a program called Grunt Work. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that started?
Yeah. So I think in all the ebbs and flows, and this is probably to my downfall, I'm one of those guys, I'm idea guy. It's oh my gosh, I've got this cool idea and I think it'd be really cool. And I started out with this thought of hey, I've done this kind of training within my CrossFit training, and we would just call it grunt work. And it was just the stuff where it was super low barrier to entry. You know, you're carrying sandbags. There's all sorts of different varieties of sled pushes and pulls, and there's not much complexity to it at all. There's really not. But it's kind of fun. And I think there's a lot of value there for people to build good raw strength and also just not smash their skull into the ground with super high intensity stuff all the time. So we plugged that into our programming already. But I thought, how cool would it be to offer that as just a standalone program? So I started off with that and just launching that as a separate program that people could just do either in substitution of some work that they're already doing, or maybe if they were kind of new to some of the, I guess you could call it, I mean, everybody calls it functional fitness, but CrossFit type workouts, or if they wanted to add it in as some supplemental work. So we launched that, and that was, 2018, I think. And, it's just been a fun little accessory piece to program for. We've seen everybody from like hunters really take on to it and outdoorsmen to people that just, especially in these times, are looking for something they can do with just stuff around home. They don't have the financial ability to deck out a home gym. We have like a whole setup in there where people can basically get everything they need at a Home Depot or a Lowe's. And we try to just make it really simple and really fun. And it's definitely lower intensity, and grunt work is the perfect term for it. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of like a hybrid strongman, odd object, slightly military inspired stuff, and it's at a great price point. So yeah, I think it's a neat thing for accessory work.
Thank you.
So for a long time, you were part of the CrossFit staff. You were seminar staff?
Yeah. 8 years. Yeah.
Now, did you start that as one of those sort of pirates that just sort of showed up one day at your level 1 and got tagged on the shoulder and said, "Hey, come do seminar staff with us"? Because I hear those stories.
Yeah, I was like right on the edge of that. There was a little bit of that. I remember I was at my level 1. There were other people. I was like, "Who are you?" And they're like, "Oh, I'm doing my level 2." And I'm like, "What? So when I did my level 1, I saw that there. And the first time I actually did my level 2, it was that. I think I went and just did another course. Gosh, I think it was. And I just like sat in on another one. But shortly after that, I think I did that in the fall. And then they launched, 2008, 2007, maybe. And they launched the level 2, which was like devastating for people. It was the practical exam. And I remember going into this thing, and it was a 2-day exam. And you would go on day 1, and all of it was practical. I think there's very little written at the end where it was kind of based off some zone stuff at the time. But I went in and I had Pat Sherwood, Nicole Carroll, Dave Castro, and Andy Stump. So talk about like your 4 most intimidating people to be over your shoulder. So day 1 was kind of, you went through this practical, and they kind of helped you and helped prepare you for day 2, which was the test. And that's when they would basically just look at you and they would say, like, "Hey, Amy, I need you to teach the squat. You have 10 minutes, ready, go." And you had to teach it to the 9 other people in the group. Or it was, "Hey, Kat, you have to teach the press, ready, go." And you had to teach 1 movement in each series. And they would grade you. You get a 1 through a 4 in each category. And people, I want to say, like, even when I was coaching the level 2s, there was like a 30 or 40% pass rate. So I took my level 2, and I remember telling them, like, hey, they had asked, like, "What do you guys want to do?" And I was like, I'd love to be on seminar staff someday. And it was cool. As I took it at the original CrossFit Santa Cruz. And I remember going upstairs to the top. If you guys look at the old videos, it was really tiny, and they had like this little bay, this little loft area upstairs. I walked up there, and Dave was there and a couple other people, and they kind of walked me through the grade, and it was cool. Dave, right afterwards, said, "Hey, if you're interested, we'd like to have you on staff." And I from there, I went and started teaching, and that just, I mean, snowballed into 8 years, better part of a decade, and helping write courses. I helped write the coach's prep course, which is now the level 2. I wrote the competitors course with Matt Shannon and Eric O'Connor, which is now the advanced coaching concepts. I helped video stuff for the level 3. It was really a really cool time. It was a very busy time in my life, but I learned a tremendous amount, got to work with some really great people, got to meet some people I have lifelong friendships with. And it really shaped me as a coach 100%. I mean, it was a tremendous opportunity.
Well, I know you certainly made an impression. Our affiliate owner, you were his level 1.
Yeah.
But oh gosh, Scott, when was that, do you think?
It would have been 10 years
2010?
ago.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
But yeah, so anyways, he was super stoked to hear we were talking with you today. So you certainly made an impression on people.
That's cool. Yeah. It was a good run, busy time, but a really good one.
So when did you open up CrossFit Park City?
Let's see, opened in May of 2007 in the corner of a rec center. No space. Yeah.
And so you weren't on seminar staff at that point? It was another year before you were on?
Yep. Yeah. So I went and got my level 1 in 2007. I think it was, I want to say it was like March of 2007 in Colorado. And then May opened up the affiliate, and then I was on staff in 2008. Yeah, the spring of 2008 is when I was on staff.
And so how has that developed, being an affiliate owner and learning all this stuff straight from headquarters as you're going through seminar staff, and then your affiliate grows and your knowledge grows? How did that translate into you being an affiliate owner?
It was actually really hard because during that time I was also focused on competing. So I had these like 3 big plates or balls I was juggling, and one was HQ, and largely that's how I provided for my family. Then I had the affiliate, and I was competing, and that also meant that I had some great relationships with sponsors. And so there were these like really trying to balance that. And if I'm honest, the affiliate probably took the back seat from all of those things. And what HQ did for me during that time, I think was really grounded me into an understanding of what classic CrossFit is, what the true goal behind it is. And although I was competing, we never had that at the gym. We never had like that influence or that pressure or that culture in the gym. And I think a lot of it was probably because I was able to see every weekend at the time, the seminars were packed. You would work with 50 or 60 different participants every weekend. So you see these masses of people. I mean, every month you're teaching another 240 people. And you realize like, hey, these people, although they might enjoy doing CrossFit, they're not trying to go to the CrossFit Games. Like, they don't need the training that I'm doing. So it was great because it kept me grounded. It also got me around other coaches that were better than me. So I was able to learn how to coach or communicate things better. The programming stayed very true to the roots and the core of what it is. And I got a lot of ideas from other people that we tried to implement at the gym or made adjustments, or maybe we tried and we threw out. But it was a really good kind of stew pot to learn from people and grow as a coach and apply that at home in the affiliate. But it was definitely hard. And I don't think the affiliate really started to thrive until I got done competing and I was able to focus on it more, as well as HQ. And so, because I was gone every weekend. So being around makes a big difference when you're running a business.
Yeah. Well, I know Kat is on the verge of opening up her own affiliate.
Yeah.
Do you have any words of wisdom?
Culture. So I think when people get into it, you obviously, like most people get into it because we're passionate about it. We obviously have to have a business plan, and we obviously have to have it set up to where it's going to be profitable so we can support our family. But I think most people don't ask themselves the question of what kind of culture do they want to have. And instead they crunch all the numbers and they forget about the culture. So you got to have both, because we have people at our gym that have been with us for 13 years. And it's because of the culture. It's not necessarily because of the programming, right? Programming matters, but that's dictated by the culture that you want to create. And people will continue to show up if you establish a culture that's supportive. I don't think it should be competitive, depending on where you are, I guess. That really will help guide a lot of decisions that people make on how many people should be in classes. Do I cap the class sizes? How many trainers do I want to have at my facility? Do we want to have an emphasis on one-on-ones? What's the, roles and responsibilities, the expectations of coaches? A lot of those things can be guided by the culture you have in the gym.
Yeah, that's great advice. And obviously with life sort of stalled right now, nothing real big is happening, but I noticed, I think that you guys are breaking ground on a new location. Is that still happening, or?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Building in Park City apparently is like nearly impossible when the economy's good, and when it's bad, it's even harder. But it's been over a year and we are still working on our permits, which is just mind-boggling. But we are continuing to move forward. We are continuing to try to really push it and make that something that is a priority for us, because I think for long term, that's the best thing for our community. And otherwise, I just own an expensive piece of dirt, and we're gonna try to put a facility on that, so we have a bit of a, I guess, long-term investment instead of just a membership pool.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about your plans for that in terms of, how many members do you have, how big it's going to be, what you're looking to do?
So it's interesting, like on the CrossFit side, we live in a really small town. So Park City, the full-time residents in Park City is about 16,000 people. So we don't live in a big town, and everything under the sun is here. And by that, I mean, we have 2 rec centers. We have Orange Theory, F45. We have boom classes. We have people that are professional coaches that used to coach people in the Tour de France. I mean, you name it, it is here. So we've had as many as 4 CrossFit gyms in our town at one time, and now there are 2. So we have right now, as far as like the CrossFit side of things, we have roughly 220 members, but we also have additional programs in the gym. So Doug he works with me with Spealler programming. He runs a program called Move, which is a high school athletic strength and conditioning program. And he also runs that as an online extension called Sturker Sports Online, which is cool. And he has probably, I would say, between 60 and 80 kids come through the door in a week. And then we also have a program called Spark, which is kind of like a CrossFit Light program. And there's probably another 40 people that come through the door there. So our membership kind of has this different ebb and flow to it. And the goal for me really has been to build a facility where these things can continue to grow, because I think for us to have health and longevity in the fitness market, we need to make sure that we know who we are and we're rooted in who we are. But my goal has always been able to have a really small training team that are professionals, like true professionals. I don't want to have an affiliate where we have 15 coaches and all of them coach 2 classes a week, because they're not professionals. And I say that in the kindest way. That's okay, because people can still coach and they can still love it, but it just doesn't mean you're a professional. Like I can do things on my computer, but I'm not a professional at it. So it's because I spend limited time. So we try to have a really small crew, and to do that, to facilitate that, they're never going to make a substantial living off just coaching classes. They can't. So what I've decided to do is try to give them opportunity to have ownership of the business, or ownership of a business where they run it inside, which is like what Doug does with Move and Kenzie with Spark. And the online programming, you have Chelsea and Kaylee helping out with that, especially on the affiliate side. So the space, we're going to try to build a 10,000 square foot building. That's the plan. Right now we're in about 6,400 square feet. And the goal isn't necessarily to have our CrossFit classes explode and be, 30-person classes. it's that we can have those trainers have more opportunity to have that professional vibe. And so now I might be able to be running a full CrossFit class while Doug is running a full high school strength and conditioning class, and Kenzie's running this. And so the goal with that size space is really to create opportunity for our trainers to thrive. And then in turn, that helps the business, because obviously that's based off of either a percentage or a rent or something like that. So that's really helpful for us to offset costs. And then what it does is it gives us great retention with our coaches too. We have coaches that have been with us for 12 years. And most of them, I think the newest coaches we have been with us for 2.5 years. And on average, we're looking at coaches that have been with us for 8 years. But that's why. It's because they have that potential. So that's kind of the goal. And then what that does for Sarah and I is it gives us a lot of leverage in the future, right? Because if we, assuming things go back to normal, which they will at some point, it gives us options down the road. In 15 years, I'll be, 56, good golly. But in 15 years, what that would let us do is hopefully we can have the building paid off. And then we can, let's say the gym's great, we can just continue to run it and we have that, we're paying ourselves rent. Or if we needed to sell the gym to one of our trainers, we could, and then charge them rent and be a landlord. Or who knows what the landscape of the market's going to be. And if we needed to, we could just lease the building out. So we're trying to do is kind of like our retirement in a way.
That's really cool. So I have a weird question, and I've always wondered this, is we have all these bars in our gym called Spiel bars.
Yes.
Where did that derive from?
That's a great question. So when I opened the affiliate, Rogue was like really small. And I don't even think they made pull-up rigs at that point in time. And no one, in fact, that I know of was really making them. So I asked a buddy of mine, he's an engineer. I was like, hey, I need a pull-up bar that I can mount to the wall. This is just my idea. I was like, I want it to mount to the wall because we're in a really tiny space. I don't want any posts going into the floor. So he came up with this system, and we still have a chunk of it in our gym now. It's really cool. I use what's called super strut or unistrut, which is, I think it's like a lot of electrical type stuff. And you would mount that to the studs in the wall. And then we used galvanized plumbing pipe, basically because we could just twist it together. And he had this system where he twisted it together, and we could have this big pull-up rig where we had 12 people and there were no posts going into the ground. It was just a triangle on the wall. And that's all I knew. And the galvanized plumbing pipe, it was just raw steel. That's all it was. It's from Home Depot, and it was raw steel. And then when I would go to gyms and they had these like fancy oxidized bars, I was like, I hate these. These things stink. They're slippery and I can't keep my hands on them. I don't like how they feel. And Bill and Katie at Rogue have always been incredibly supportive. And they're like, hey, if you ever have any ideas about like developing equipment, we'd be happy to help. And I was like, I think we should do a pull-up bar. And at the time they had those double ones, where it was like, that's how they reinforced it. And I said, well, with those, like, you can't really do a bar muscle up. So what if we just went like a bare steel bar and put like gussets on the side? And that was it. And then a month later it came out, and it's been that way since. And it's still obviously my favorite bar.
Same. Yeah. Thank you for that. We appreciate it. We love our Spiel bars.
Yes, you're welcome.
Yeah, we just moved to a new facility, and I think we bought 4 new ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, to add to the ones.
And it's still not enough. People are still asking for more. So.
Yeah, they're great. Like, and they hold chalk better.
Yeah, they do.
Like, and I feel like I don't need as much chalk. It's just a preference. For some, they probably think I'm nuts, but I love it.
Yeah, it's a winner in our gym.
Good.
So now that we've gone through all that, let's touch on your games experience just a little bit before we let you go.
You are an OG in the sport, and you helped grow the sport. So
yeah,
we have to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So you were at the very first CrossFit Games in 2007. And, you hear about it. It's kind of legendary as this like awesome barbecue that people just
Yeah.
kind of worked out at.
Yeah.
What was your impressions of that?
Pretty accurate. An awesome barbecue where we worked out. It was, looking back, it's like surreal to think of what it was and what it's turned into. Literally the middle of nowhere. Like no one would know where it is unless they knew the actual address and how to find it. It was, I think, probably the most unique thing. I was, at the time, everybody was on CrossFit.com, and very few gyms even existed. So everyone was on .com, and we were all posting scores, and it was the OPTs and the AFTs and the Kelly Moores and the Brandons and the NY Allison and NYC and like all, like all these like old names. And what was so cool is we would go and be like, oh, you're OPT. Oh, you're. And so it was really neat to put a face to the name. And it was CrossFit in the truest form, like no fancy gear, no fancy equipment. It's what people are doing today. Grab your dumbbells in your garage, throw down, go out in the dirt, make it happen. You can get fit with very little. Yeah, it was really, really neat, really special year.
And so it was so much fun. You came back 6 more times. But of course it evolved over those years.
Yeah.
So what was that evolution like?
Crazy. I mean, 2007, 2008, you just had to show up and put your name on a paper. You were in the CrossFit Games. 2009, you had to qualify, and it felt like they tried to kill us with the workouts. 2010, it's made this massive leap to now being in the Home Depot Center. And although there's no one really there, like, let's be honest, the crowds, the stands, like quite empty. There is a real sense, I think, of like, whoa, this is like on the cusp of something big happening here. And things got more serious, like more complexity, more strength. 2011 and 12, I kind of look at it in these 2-year blocks. It was now a full-time gig. If you want to go to the CrossFit Games, you need to be living a specific lifestyle in order to make that happen. No longer can you just be like a fit guy in your community and show up. You have to have a specific training program. You've got to make some serious sacrifices. And then 2013 and on, it's just amplified. It's just absurd what the athletes are doing, the demands that they have to be put through, the level of competition. It's just, and obviously we saw changes with sanctionals and regionals going away. I still really miss the regionals days. But it was super intense. I mean, by the time we were 2013, 14, there's a lot on the line, a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of sacrifice on the line compared to 2007.
That's really cool. So one thing I wanted to touch on is in 2010, it's kind of known as the games where Rich fell off the rope.
It's true.
But that was an iconic podium.
Yeah.
It was Graham Holmberg, Rich Froning, and you.
Yeah.
All OGs of the sport, all still kind of hanging around, still supporting the sport. What did that feel like to make the podium at the games?
It's actually funny. I wrote this in my book. I knew the moment that I did not win that year, I knew that I would never win the CrossFit Games again. I knew that was my chance. Like the way that programming stacked up and the way that the order that it fell in, I knew that I would probably never stand on that podium again. So it was so satisfying to see the hard work. And I think the mentality that I had going in that year, I had like a really good headspace that year. So it was really rewarding to be there. But at the same time, we didn't know what was to come. So it's like, it was just, it was really special and it was really great, but no one knew what it was going to turn into. So it was hard looking back. It makes it more special looking back. But at the time it was just, yeah, all that hard work had been put to use and I guess rewarded in some way.
So then in 14, you make the games one last time as an individual, and the outpouring of love from the CrossFit community at that event for you, was that similar to podium finishing, or was it something different?
Way better. I mean, I could not have asked for a better way to say goodbye. It, like, still to this day, it gives me chills. I had goals going into 2014. I had goals when I went to the CrossFit Games. I knew I wasn't going to win. I wasn't fit enough. I wasn't big enough, whatever. But I still had goals. I think often my goal when I would go to the CrossFit Games was to be in the top 10. And even that year, I knew I was like, okay, let's make top 15 the goal. And as the weekend went on, I just had to adjust that. I was like, I want to be on the floor for the last, I don't want to get cut. And I also made it a priority that year, instead of just being so focused on competition, I was like, you know what? I know this is my last year. I've made that commitment. So I'm going to try to enjoy it. I'm going to try to embrace a little bit of, like, look up at the crowd and engage with that, and don't be so, like, laser focused. And that combination of that, as well as just, like you said, the outpouring of love and support from the community. Like, although I maybe never met my goal of winning the CrossFit Games or getting top 10 that year, I have zero regrets and zero what if, shoulda, coulda, woulda, when I look back at how I was able to say goodbye to that floor. I mean, it was so special, thanks to the community, that I've been able to, even though hard at times, close that chapter without any regrets.
And then in 17, you actually make it back as a Masters. And I remember at the time you were, and we're all Masters athletes, that's kind of what we're about. You make it back. And at the time you were saying, I'm not going to change my training. I'm still going to do my hour of a day. And did you do that all the way up to the games?
Just about. I got a little psycho for about 4 weeks there. I was like, I got to do more. And then because I'm old and broken, my back was messed up. I was like, I can't do more. I need to go back to the hour a day, one workout a day thing, which I did. And here's the deal is, like, I'd still been training hard, and I still had quite a decent amount of capacity from 2014, 15. So it'd only been 2 years. And I wasn't training like I used to, for sure, during that 2-year window, but I also hadn't lost a ton. I can't do things that I did in 2017 now. Like, I really can't snatch heavy anymore because of some shoulder issues, and I got to be smart. Like, a lot of the heavier loading, it's not something my body can handle anymore, nor is it something I need to do to be able to ride my dirt bike and downhill mountain bike. So why would I smash my face on the ground doing it? But I still had a fair amount of capacity left and was able to just, pretty much go in there with about an hour a day, and got lucky.
That was a special year for me because I actually worked the games as a volunteer at the North Park, and got to see you up close and personal for the first time.
Cool.
And me following the sport. So that was pretty cool. And that was a pretty epic podium there as well, with Kyle Kasperbauer, Neil Maddox, and yourself finishing in the top 3 at that year.
That was cool. It was really cool to really go in there with no stress. There was lots of mixed emotions that year because I saw so many guys that I knew in passing that were there as individuals. And I say this in the kindest way, because of my previous experience, it was very unsatisfying. And I say that in the kindest way because of the experience that I had before. What made it so great was the guys that I was with, like Kyle and Neil and stuff like that. And that's what made it so great, was just this low key, have fun, just go out and throw down kind of event where I didn't even look at the leaderboard until I finished. I didn't know. And that was very, very different approach than in the past.
And then last year you got to come back and do the Rogue Legends,
Yeah.
which I have to say, Scott and I were totally stoked on that, because being here in Columbus, I mean, it feels pretty amazing that we can just jaunt on over there to Rogue. And so what was that experience like, getting to compete with the legends and the OGs again?
Man, definitely one of the coolest events I've ever done. That and the Tahoe Throwdown, maybe two of the most memorable things I've done outside the scope of, your regular CrossFit Games stuff. And the same thing, but it's so funny. Everybody's still the same, Chan is still a bit of a joker, and Khalipa's still taking things more serious than he should. And, it's like all of us are still the same. So we still have these, we still have this, this personality, but we were all there just really kind of enjoying one another. And, to be able to do Amanda with everybody and have it be like this reunion, oh gosh.
It was epic to watch.
So,
it was epic to watch.
So cool. So cool. Yeah, really another special moment for us.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I did want to ask you one thing. You mentioned earlier, that you are a smaller athlete, and being an OG in the sport and being so successful in the sport. What would be one tip that you think led to your success that you could offer to other smaller athletes who are competing in this field?
One, I was really lucky to have started wrestling when I was 6. People sometimes would ask me, like, hey, how'd you get so strong for your size? And I kind of didn't have an answer for them. I was like, hey, start wrestling when you're 6 and start lifting with when you're 12. And that's like the recipe. Because strength takes a lifetime to build. It does for all of us, And then the wrestler mentality that I learned served better than anything else that could have. Like, the wrestler mentality I learned, and this is kind of still how I am with work and things like that, is it didn't matter in wrestling. It didn't matter what I had. It didn't matter. Coaching obviously made a huge difference, but when the odds are stacked against you, or even if I didn't know what exactly to do, it didn't matter, because when I was wrestling, I was just going to work harder than you. So I don't care if you have the special training program. I'm just going to work harder than you with my regular training program. I'll just go outside and run and smash myself into the ground running. I don't care if you have a specific program. I don't care if you're favored to win. I don't care what. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to go out there and beat you. And if I don't, I'm going to make you wish you never walked out there with me again. And so I kind of carried that into CrossFit, where I was like, I don't know. I think I had a bit of a misfiring in my brain, but I would be frustrated when I couldn't lift as much as Jason or Neil, even though I in the back of my head, I knew that I shouldn't be able to. There was this piece of me that was annoyed that I couldn't. And I was like, I didn't want to just be a good small athlete. I wanted to beat the big guy because I wasn't supposed to. And I also didn't look at myself as that small. When I saw pictures of myself next to people, I was like, wow, I'm small. But when I was there, I didn't feel that way. And I don't know why. But I think I really embraced and really loved the underdog mentality. I loved it. And when people doubted me, all the more fuel for me. So that was probably to my advantage in some ways.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's helpful for small athletes. Where I was.
Yeah.
Well, I have more questions for you, but we've taken up a ton of your time, and I don't want to keep you too long. I had a whole bunch of questions about your faith, but we never got to that. So maybe we'll have to do a part 2 later down the road and talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Especially in these times, it's I told a couple of my friends and people hey, I pass no judgment on where people are in that journey and that walk and wherever they are along that scope of whatever they believe and where they are. But it's funny, I was kind of thinking today just about talking to people at the gym and seeing people it's heavy on my heart. I think people are hurting, especially now. It seems like at this kind of month mark, it's sinking in, and just an encouragement to people, like, I don't know, again, no judgment, right? And I love you guys the same, no matter where people are, but like, there is a God that loves you, and he's there to engage with you. And I think he allows things like this that are beyond our comprehension. And I think it's so that we can engage with him, and because he's there to help and to reach out. And if we reach out, he will engage. And I think a lot of people are looking for something like that. And there's a lot of hope to be found there, and a lot of peace to be found there. And yeah, I think that in the simplest way, a lot of people think they have to have all their crap figured out before they start to pursue some kind of understanding of their relationship with Jesus. And it's completely opposite. You can be the biggest screw up, the biggest punk, the biggest whatever. And those are the people Jesus hung out with.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for sharing that. And again, I had more questions, but again, maybe we'll just do a part 2 on
Perfect.
down the road sometime.
Sounds good.
Thank you for taking the time out, Chris. We really appreciate it a lot. And
Yeah.
I hope you have a great day and a great weekend, and enjoy your family.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks for making the
Thanks,
time,
Robin.
and hang in there. All right. You got it.
All right.
Stay well.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
So that was a great interview. I'm so glad we got to have Chris on. I think I talked on the last episode that I actually was in talks with him to come on the podcast while he was going through COVID. And he kept having the delay, and I didn't know why, because he kind of kept that to himself at the time. But so glad that he was willing to come on, because I'm sure he has a lot of requests going right now because of what he's been through. So shout out to Chris. Thank you very much. So we have a lot of news to talk about today, a lot.
Yeah.
And the biggest of them all was the Instagram post made by the CrossFit Games earlier this week, I think 2 days ago, that said that they are fully committed to having a live in-person competition for the CrossFit Games. And that they
No
are fully,
spectators.
no spectators, and they are fully focusing on holding the games at the ranch. And they're also focused on looking at online options. So that seems very counter to fully focused on in-person at the ranch, and yet focusing on an online version.
Yeah, so here's my take on that. There's no way that 300 plus athletes can show up at the ranch and do the CrossFit Games, right? So last year when all those national champions came, my guess is, and this is just my guess, national champions are going to get weeded out by some online competition, qualifying type thing. I also think, unfortunately, masters and teens are probably going to get the shaft.
Yep.
On some kind of online competition, because I just, again, logistically, I think it's too much. You figure teenagers have to come with parents, and that's more people than they can accommodate. So I think age group's probably going to go away, and you're probably going to end up with like 20 or 30 guys and 20 or 30 girls at the ranch doing something, and it probably won't be the last week in July, first week in August at the ranch.
So when do you think they'll make it?
I mean, I think it depends on if we open up to some more sanctioned events prior to, those will have to happen, and they can't all happen the same weekend. If it's, if we open up in the middle of July or something like that. But I would imagine that maybe they start that online stuff at the same time they were supposed to have the games. Maybe that last week in July, early August is when they do online, because the people that do the online comps are going to have to be in a space, right? They're going to have to have access to a gym or something. And then maybe that the idea of those athletes in person at the ranch happens like early September. I don't know.
So I can see that, but then my only worry would be, or thought would be, then what are they going to do about the open? Because there's going to be this much time for recovery. before hopping right back into the open if they want to get back on track with their regular scheduling, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather them, this season's messed up anyway.
Yeah.
I don't want them to do anything that's going to mess up next season too, but I still want games, I still want to see something. Kat, did you happen to see or hear the Talking Elite Fitness talking
Yes.
about what their ideas were? A lot of what you said kind of matches what Tommy and Sean kind of talked about. The one thing I love that they said is to limit the number of people at the ranch at a time, doing the teams on one weekend and the individuals on the next weekend, or vice versa.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really cool idea. Then you get kind of 2 weekends of the games. It's great for the spectator just watching online. And the other idea I think that was really awesome was they said, you're going to have to stream the event because there's no spectators. So charge like $5 for the stream and use it as a fundraiser to help get, boxes and everything kind of back on their feet.
Yeah. I would absolutely, I'd pay money to see it for sure.
Absolutely.
I don't know how realistic it would be for them to open up the ranch weekend after weekend for that kind of stuff. I mean, to accommodate teams and individuals and everybody else. But, they've taken efforts to pull things off quicker and harder before. So I'm sure they'll figure something out. But I definitely think the online component's going to be for those national champions.
Yeah. I'm super excited though that it's going to be back at the ranch. I think it's a kind of a cool, a feel for it. I know that we did that, for the 10-year, but it's just kind of, because this year has just kind of been so weird, it's kind of nice to, I want to say, like, go back home and feel kind of some of that original stuff.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I just hope everyone can make it there. The ones that do qualify, like, can they get there?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Europe's starting to open up a little bit. I know here in Ohio, we're talking about opening up in May to some things slowly, not, gates wide open in May.
Right.
So we still have a few months, maybe we can get some stuff going to where people can get there. I'm just excited that they're not giving up on holding it and trying to come up with a solution that works for everyone.
Yeah, the communication's great. We're not used to the greatest communication coming out of HQ. So the fact that they're talking about it all is kind of nice. And I think the Rogue online competition is going to sort of set the bar and sort of be a barometer for how does this going to work, and can we coordinate something that's, official in that manner. So.
Yeah, I think that I don't want to crown the fittest on earth by using an online competition.
Yeah, no.
Like if it comes to that, then we need to call it something else, and they can win prize money and do whatever, but it shouldn't tarnish the legacy of what the fittest on earth is. And like, if Matt Frazier does an online competition, doesn't win, it shouldn't take away from that legacy of 4 in a row or going for that 5th. I want to be careful there. But I think if you hold it in person at the ranch and he loses, then the streak's over. But online, it just can't be the fittest on earth at that point.
No, I agree.
You got any thoughts, Charlie?
Nope.
No.
No, I think you guys pretty much hit all the points that I had in terms of how this thing should look.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, talking about kind of reopening, in the morning chalk up this morning, because we're recording on Saturday, April 18th.
Yeah.
And there was an article this morning that talked about a group of people kind of getting together and trying to prove that gyms are essential and being able to open up in like phase 1 of the president's mandate of reopening kind of things. And so I don't want to talk about the specifics of that. If you want to read that article, it's out there on the morning chalk up. But I do want to talk about just kind of the general feeling of, are gyms essential? And I think they are. I mean, the more fit we can make America, the better off we are in fighting disease of all kinds, not just pandemic disease, but of all kind. So I'm just going to throw that out to you guys for your thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's an essential business. I think though that when the government is thinking about, allowing fitness centers to go back, I think in their mind they're picturing, Planet Fitnesses or those types of gym and not necessarily the CrossFit business model. So I think that there's that aspect. I do think it's important to note though that what they're talking about in the morning chalk up is originating though right now out of Columbus, Ohio, which is where the three of us friends are coming from. So I know there's just some groups that are kind of working together, and what they are trying to do is release a document to the government that shows we think that we're an essential business. Here's the steps that we think, kind of set the stage for getting our type of business model back in again. So, but I think that is adding some essential thing, because we talk about, doing CrossFit and being healthy is an important component to fighting chronic diseases and to keep at bay all these other illnesses that could be approaching us and making us not healthy.
I think our guest was a great example of that in terms of, that Chris actually had it, and he's, obviously one of the most fit masters or people in general in the world, I'd say. And yes, it had him down a little bit, but now you can see he's on the way up, and I think that his fitness actually helped him kind of where he's at now. So
certainly.
Yeah, I'm just really hoping that, when and if we go back to some semblance of normalcy, especially in gyms and health centers, is that people that hadn't considered working out before start making it a priority, just if it's only because of COVID-19 than anything else, to just realize that they need a leg up on this, and, to be a little more resilient to stuff that's out there. So.
And I'm going to need Planet Fitness to continue their Pizza Fridays, because that is really the key to fitness.
Okay, was not expecting that answer. So thank you for that, Charlie. All right, so support your box. They just announced the third and final workout this week, and with that, Nicole Carroll did a video kind of going through the workout, and in that she announced that as of this time they have raised $2.5 million through that initiative, which is amazing. Really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, especially in a time right now where people are people might be out of work, that the fact that they're able to raise $2 million with that now, I think that's fantastic.
And just so you know, you can still sign up all the way through this week. You can still do all 3 workouts, and you can still donate to the box of your choice through the app. So I encourage you, if you haven't done so already. The first 2 workouts weren't too bad. The last one is a chipper, not necessarily the Clydesdale's favorite.
Amy
like
is cheering in her little box over there. But yeah, so the last one's a chipper, and you can still sign up and do all 3. They're all doable within 1 week. So if you want to do that, it's definitely something you can still do. And we highly encourage that. So
is there a leaderboard for that? Has anyone been checking out the leaderboard on that, or do we believe it, or how legit is that?
I've never been on the leaderboard, so it never really motivated me to go look.
Got it. I'll have to check it out in my spare time, see what's happening.
I just started my indoor ball, so we'll see where I end up. Take a test for that.
Oh, Charlie.
Oh, Charlie.
He just needs the steroids to handle his children. It has nothing to do with working out.
Just to get by.
Love it.
Just to stay in charge of this.
To be able to jump high enough to scrape the poop off the ceiling.
And the fan.
Yeah. And for our new listeners on YouTube, go back and listen to Charlie's poop incident, and you'll know what we're talking about.
Whoa. Charlie's children's poop incident.
Yeah, tomato.
Somehow it became my incident.
Become yours.
And actually, that's a great segue. We are going to release Charlie's. We went back, we did Amy's bio with Kat, interviewing her, and Kat interviewing me. We released that, a week and a half ago?
Yeah.
And Charlie's is being released Wednesday.
Awesome.
So he'll get a midweek release, so the masses can get out and hear him
That's right.
talk about
Smash
the
that
poop
like button.
incident.
Yeah, we
Right
talk
in-
about
right
the
off
poop
the top.
incident. Yep, right off the top. Get it out of the way. And we have a good discussion about the games too. My little conspiracy theory about canceling the games and Matt Fraser and all that. So good stuff.
Ooh.
So look for that Wednesday, and you'll enjoy that. And if you haven't heard Amy and I's and you want to know a little bit more about us, you can go check those out too on all podcast platforms. And eventually I'll be converting all of those to YouTube with some pictures in front. So check that out. And now for our favorite segment of the week. I know it's Amy's favorite segment. She prepares all week for this.
I got a good one.
What is your favorite thing you saw on the internet?
Go ahead, Amy.
Okay. It's on TikTok, but you can also see it on Instagram and other places. But have you seen the dinosaur?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Let me tell you about it. It's fantastic, is it not?
Yes,
So-
it is.
There's a new number of videos, but it's these two, I don't know, they're probably preteen girls, and they will just get on TikTok and they'll start like filming their parents doing stuff and, like cleaning the kitchen or doing something. And then they'll say, "Is that the dinosaur?" And as soon as they do that, the dad turns into a dinosaur and starts wreaking havoc all over the house. And the mom is just like, stop it, getting mad. And then like on Easter, they're trying to do a family photo and the kids say dinosaur. So anytime they say dinosaur, he turns into this dinosaur and does weird stuff. So,
And he goes full dinosaur.
oh, I mean,
There's no.
took a birthday cake, smashed it, threw it all over. I mean, it's fantastic. You have to see it.
Scott and I are like, what?
Yeah.
Check
I
it
gotta
out right
up-
after I get off here.
I know, I got to up my TikTok game. That's for sure.
Yep.
It's like a
All
black
right.
hole.
Charlie, I'm tagging you. Your best thing.
Now, why would you do that?
Because
So I'm going to take one similar to, I don't think it's TikTok, but it was going around Facebook. It's a dad who's doing a song about the quarantine and his family and everything. And it's a nice little ditty. I'm going to send it to Scott so we can post it to the bottom of this YouTube, but it's, I think his name is the Hebron family or something like that. Maybe I think you've seen it before, but
I bet it's the Holderman family.
that him too.
Okay.
I think theirs is good too, but
Okay.
Again, it's this quarantine life. You're just looking at weird, crazy things that just make you laugh.
Yeah, and Amy,
What was-
if you can send me the link to the TikTok, I'll put it at the bottom too.
Yeah. Charlie, I'm curious, what's the most watched movie at your house right now? This week.
Well, you could say this month because since 7 p.m. yesterday, we've watched Trolls 2. I think we're on the 6th showing, as you may hear in the background. So it's just basically on repeat.
Wow.
I wish it was Fittest on Earth, but unfortunately, Trolls 2: The World of Rock.
Fantastic.
Excellent.
Kat?
All right, so I'm going to
World
go
of
along.
Rock.
Yes, for sure. I'm going to go along the same lines as you guys and talk quarantine stuff. So there's a Facebook video going around where a young woman, I guess she must be a comedian, she interviews herself from the future in the past, right? So she goes to herself in, I don't know, like early February, and she says, and she says, all right, now ask me anything about the future, and I'll answer your questions. And she's like, well, what's it like? And did we get over the Australian wildfires? And she's like, oh yeah, that happened. Yeah, that's not really a big deal, and she's like, what do you mean that's not a big deal? Like, that was the defining moment of 2020. She's like, not so much, and she tells her past self to like buy Zoom, sell everything off the stock market, buy Zoom, tells her to get fit, buy some wine, everything else. Really, really funny. And it's the same person back and forth. I'll find that for you and send it to you, Scott.
Yeah, I've actually seen it. It is amazing.
Really funny.
Yeah. So is it my turn? Am I tagged in?
Yes.
Jack Dan.
So mine is not quarantine related. And this is just silly me stuff. But anyway.
It's
Armen
not
Hammer-
sentimental?
It is not sentimental.
Hmm.
Armen Hammer I think he's bored because there's not a lot of sanctional news to talk about. He does an episode on why Rocky IV is the greatest training montage ever in a movie.
I've watched it 3 times, Scott.
Okay.
It is amazing.
It is
So good.
awesome.
I
Yes.
thought you were going to say the greatest Rocky movie because that's not true.
No, greatest training montage because it's actually, and it's so he breaks it down. It's actually 2 training montages put together into one epic training montage.
True.
And he's analyzing the movements of Sylvester Stallone and Dolph Lundgren through the thing. And there's a part where Dolph Lundgren is cleaning, and then he strict presses.
Mm-hmm.
If the weights were real, would be 455 pounds.
In front of a crowd of people standing 2 feet away from him.
Listen, you saw him take the,
And
you
he
saw him take the
breaks it
interval.
down like that, bit by bit through the whole thing. And I am, like, Rocky 1 is my favorite movie of all time. And I've watched all the Rockies so many times, I can't even count. So it was really cool to see him break it down from a fitness perspective through the training montage of Rocky IV. And so I will put that link at the bottom as well, because it is epic and really cool.
He's released a second one now too, a different movie, different training montage. And I've seen it and I can't even remember what it was, but he's on a roll now. So he's taking recommendations for other movies that you want him to review like that. It's classic.
But he does say Rocky IV is the best
I was going to say Rocky IV is the best.
Yeah.
training montage.
Training montage.
Yeah. Not movie, training montage.
Not movie.
Yeah. So, well, with that, we're going to wrap it up with, hey, we're on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like so we can get more great content out there for you guys. And we have a really cool guest next week that we have recorded already.
Yes,
Yep.
Amy.
Yep.
So,
Look forward to that.
yeah, a really awesome guest next week for that. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the notifier so you know when it comes out, because that'll be awesome. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at the Clydesdale CrossFitter. And we'll see you next week on the Clydesdale CrossFitter and Friends.
Bye.
Bye.